What's up, guys? Welcome to the Flow In, Flow Out podcast. My name is Samnang, man. I'm your host here. I'm a lifestyle and performance coach, a hybrid athlete, and philosopher. And we got a wonderful guest today. He's our client, student, guinea pig. His name is Anthony Internicola. Is that how you say your last name?
That's it. On the dot.
Yeah. On the dot. That's what's up. So I'm gonna introduce you, everybody, to who Anthony is and what we've been doing. So Anthony came to me, and we've been working together for approximately 3 to 4 months. I think that was it, and we met with each other every other week, and we had some really good sessions together. When he first came to me, he expressed a lot of the stuff that he resonated with the message that I was saying amongst my podcast and my social media and my Instagram and everything. And he really connected with the message. And when we met together on our first call, our philosophies aligned. And I was like, I would, I even extended as I would like to work with you. And we both agreed that it would be a mutual benefit to work together. And we did a lot of work. I'm applaud Anthony. Anthony came in, he was ready to work. He was like, you're the guy that I want to get the results from. And continue on. He came and we went to work. He was open and honest with everything that we've done. He has a lot to share. He because we met up before the podcast, and he wants to share a little bit about his testimonial and how how it'll help a lot of people out there as well too. So we've done a lot of work, and I wanted to have him on the podcast so he could talk about our experience and some of his messages and ideas and insight that he's gained from the show. Or not from the show, from our coaching sessions. And then here he is. Anthony, take the floor.
What's up? Anthony here. Thanks so
Yep.
much for having me, Sam. I'm excited to be part of it.
Yeah. So feel free to, so I gave you a little bit of introduction, share a little bit about who you are when you first started. I think sharing the message of like how my message resonated with you, because you shared that when you first came. And then also too, what's cool is he is a high school graduate of Laboratic, which is where I went to high school. But he knew me when I played track and field. I didn't really play track and field. I just kind of like experimented there. But he mentioned to me on the first call that he knew who I was, and I realized who he was too after that phone call when I went to go look at the yearbook. So we have a little bit of history. Share on that, how like you started and you like how you resonated with my message.
Absolutely. Maybe like you said, I'll start with an introduction of myself, and I'll start with two introductions. I'll start with the introduction of my past self and my current self. I'm the same guy, but I've learned a lot.
The identity
So,
shift.
I mentioned, in a past session, I'd mentioned I knew you from high school, and to go back there, at that time I was a young man. You were a young man. I was probably 16. I was very angry. Looking back, I was very angry. I was very codependent. I had a very black and white mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was very strong. I thought I was tough, and I could persevere, and I could, and I was. And in that 38 now, so in that, what is that, 22 years? It's crazy.
Yeah.
In that 22 years, I've done a lot of growth, which is interesting because you think as a young man, you're striving to achieve manhood. You want to be fully baked. You want to go out in the world, capable and ready to execute on life, right? And I think with that mindset, that black and white mindset, you miss opportunities to grow and learn. And I think I persisted in that mindset for a while, really up until probably 34, 35.
Mm-hmm.
A lot happened in between. I had a lot of personal experiences that, I may have grown some from inadvertently. But I think overall, I wasn't really mindful in my presence and in the world. I wasn't really open to really getting to know myself. The guy I am today, again, I'm the same guy, but I believe I'm maybe more authentic now than I was before. I used to look at myself as flawed, as we all are. That's one thing that's one fact of life that I've come to accept. we're all flawed, and that's a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
thing because that presents so many opportunities. Um,
I like that.
but at 34, I went through divorce, hit sort of rock bottom. I was feeling empty. I was angry. Felt like I'd put so much effort and will out in the world, and grinded so hard to get where I wanted to be and get my people where they wanted to be. And I felt like it all just fell apart and blew up in my face. So I fell into sort of a depression. I sort of isolated. And I realized that I didn't want my life to be that way. And
Yeah.
there had to be more out there. And um, I got into some therapy, personal one-on-one therapy with my current therapist, Linda. I've been seeing her for about 4.5 years now. I got into a dad's group. Um, and really I learned how to, the biggest step was I learned how to accept myself and really shed the black and white thinking, the programming I had inherited. Um, I'm still working on that every day, and I think it's something I will continue to work on for the rest of my life. Much
Yeah.
like you and your endeavors in physical fitness, going to the gym, I feel like that interpersonal work, whether it be therapy, life coach, reading, meditation, that's like the gym for your mind, and you gotta show up for yourself like almost every day.
Yeah,
So
man. I'm proud of your work, man. When Anthony first came and we met and everything, he looked like he was getting in a fight with himself like every day. He looked literally like beat up. And then I guess my strategy, I could tell a little bit about like my strategy with Anthony was that he was you mentioned a lot of things that are very I'll kind of like break down a little bit. Uh something fall. Was it
yeah,
roof shingle? Roof shingle fall. Um but my strategy was Anthony was in himself. He had a couple words that he was holding on to, and there was even words that I didn't know, like codependent. Right, I think that was one of the words that he used. But I asked him a lot about it and pulled out his information, and I was asking a lot of strategic questions that I think that he wasn't looking at. He had a very like Western philosophy. The Western philosophy came from like get things done, grind, accomplish things, do this, do that, do that. But where is that like fulfillment side? Because when I started talking to him, he didn't really have any like anything, I guess, like passionate about or kind of filling that tank of like fulfillment and stuff. So I started asking some questions about outside of just like regular work and everything, and then like how he was giving back, and then just kind of filling in some of the gaps. And Anthony really picked up on a lot of things. Um, some of the we talked a lot about philosophy. I think that was one of the big things that we talked about because Anthony was very masculine, like full in his masculine frame, but I was starting to coach him and teach him to empathize a little bit with himself. That, like he said, we are all flawed. We're all flawed, right? It's learning how to kind of accept who we are and some of those mistakes, some of those feelings, because we're not generally like our feelings. Like I feel like shit. Some people feel like shit. Sometimes they have anxiety, they have lack of focus and stuff like that at times, but you're not that thing. So, and the thing is, one time is like we're trying to like remove this programming of identifying with these things. And as you grew up with like your parenting and your dad and stuff, you were programmed to, hey, this is what a masculine man should be, right? And we worked together and kind of coached each other. You know, it was a two-way thing where like you were coaching me and giving me feedback as well too. And I was coaching you to be a little bit more empathetic with yourself, and you've definitely learned how to be more empathetic with yourself. Maybe talk a little bit about how, maybe a misconception of how men think that being empathetic to themselves is like a stereo, or is like bad, or is it it's healthy for you, talk about
man.
that.
Yeah, I mean, when I found you online, I'd like done a lot of work and I'd really come a long way. But it was really like in my own circles, right? It was with my therapist. It was with my dad's group I'm in. It's with the friends that I have and value. But I really, I I wanted a third party opinion. You helped me validate a lot of where I'm at. Uh, but more importantly, um, the entire mind. You helped me validate that the mindset I had, uh, the mindset I had compared to the mindset I have now doesn't make me weak, right?
Yeah.
Um, a few changes, a few changes, personal changes. I mean, I never cried. Like I never cried really as a kid.
Yeah.
Um, and growing up until I like had my rock bottom and like emotions just poured out and they would pour out in weird ways.
Yeah.
Um, I think the only emotion I really had was anger. Um, and I was scared of that, and I didn't like it because that was my experience as a kid. So I also, even the anger, even though that was one of the only emotions I could feel, I buried it.
Yeah.
Um,
Anger.
so I am. I mean, I also had to accept who I am and what I am, and that was the biggest part of it. My growing up, my dad, not to get too personal, but I had a very masculine model, right?
Hmm.
Like anger, tough guy, kind of macho shit. And I could be that, but it didn't feel right. It felt like I felt like an incomplete person, and I'm good. I can be good at that, which isn't necessarily great. There were pieces of me that I left behind, and I guess to tie it all together, I had this epiphany. When I was sitting there at 35, going through a divorce, which at the time was really impactful, really hurt my ego, and made me
Yeah.
scared for my kids. It made me feel weak and unable to protect and provide in the
Yeah.
way that I intended to. And this epiphany was, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about, I'm looking at a piece of artwork that my buddy Mikey made in high school and gave to me. And it's like really dynamic. I'm looking at the colors, I'm looking at the canvas, I'm looking at like, there's all this intricate, like, sort of subtle detail. And I had this epiphany, like my life is a piece of art.
Yeah.
And the colors are my emotions and my brushstrokes are my actions, right? And I'm thinking about it and I'm looking at I'm looking at this piece of art and I'm looking at all the detail and how dynamic it is and I'm thinking about myself in that frame, my life in that frame.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I only know how to use a couple of colors. And like I don't even have a paintbrush. I got a fucking hammer. You
Yeah.
know? Like how
Yeah.
is this going to turn out?
You got a hammer.
You know
Yeah,
what I'm
man.
thinking?
I
Yeah.
think that's a
Yeah.
beautiful metaphor that I'm sure you kind of thought of that as we've been working together and everything. But it's beautiful where like you're saying that you are becoming more dynamic. It's like I think you had a motto and that was it. Like you said, you are a hammer. That's a tool, right? And using these metaphors and stuff, it's powerful. It works for some people, right? Like the metaphor that you described about the painting, the metaphor and how dynamic you are with the brushstrokes, and that's who you should be. It's very artistic, right? I think that's kind of probably some of my influence on you. But and then you had the hammer. It's like most people walk around with a hammer, but realizing that hey, when you have your kids, when you're around your coworkers, when you're around yourself by yourself, how do you act? How do you become this person that you want to be that's healthy? Of course we're not 100% all the time. Like there's times and phases where like we start to hate each other or hate ourselves. I have times like that. It's normal. But the what's unhealthy it becomes when we're trying to suppress it. Like you and me, like and all men, I'm a high testosterone man, and I didn't cry. I mean, when I started lifting weights, I don't think I shed a tear ever, like rarely ever, except for like when my mom passed away. But as I got older, I was like, I can't cry just because of the level of testosterone. But when I started going through some of my own shit, just like you, similar in like divorce, and anxiety and stuff, I was crying like every day, but I knew it was healthy because every time and I want to share this message for men that are listening because it is a powerful message that crying doesn't show weakness. It shows that you understand your emotions and stuff, and suppressing it comes out in different ways. that we all know, you become snappy, you become grumpy, or you become different ways, but it comes out in different ways. But suppressing the emotion of sadness, the suppression of like anger and stuff, as adults, we do have to manage it, right? Anger, that's why people lift weights. That's why people train martial arts and stuff. So starting to understand that when these emotions come, because I have anger, I have frustrations, I have sadness, I have loneliness as well too. But I understand as a life coach and stuff that I have to kind of like be on top of it as well too, and teach it and coach it as well too. But suppressing it is very unhealthy. But letting it come out, whether it be in a safe space or anything, but you owe it. For me, like when I have a crying session, I call it it's a crying session. It sucks, but I feel so much more like emotional weight lifted off that it's gonna be okay. I think we're all in a boat place where like depression's real. When you go through life changes, especially our age, like we're similar age and everything, and we're just trying to help each other share our experiences so we can help one another, right? We're the same age. I see you as a brother, and I talk to you as like a brother where I genuinely want to help you, make you feel better. And you have, I think you inspire me so much. Like every time we get off a call, I was like, hey, I made a big difference on Anthony's life. And talk about like your mindset. Like the other day you said something so cool to me. I was like, you almost feel like limitless now, where I think you're starting to learn how to manage that emotional energy. Is that kind of like where you're at now?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say limitless. I mean, I would, yeah, but there's definitely like more potential, man. Like you
More
you you had said,
potential.
I saw one of the posts you did the other day. You said like I created a problem, but I created that gave me an opportunity to find value, right?
Yeah.
Problem, solution, value. And I was like, no, dude, you didn't create the problem. You found the problem. Like the problems exist. And I mean, that's the thing, man. At the end of the day, like, you know, there are so many problems in the world that we fixate on. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we really can't influence much outside of ourselves. And that requires us to sort of let go of a lot of things we don't control. Some of us as men, we struggle with control. We want our family to be safe, obviously. We want our environment and our community to be healthy, for us and for our family and for itself. We want to contribute. Um, but there's so many variables that we don't control, and we get really frustrated on those. When you have a conversation with somebody, it doesn't go the way you want it to go. Um,
Yeah.
you might get frustrated with that person. They don't understand me. They might not be able to understand you. So I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's really like looking on the inside. Like
Yeah.
there's nobody out there. We're all struggling, man. There's nobody out there, and nobody can help you. You know, um, you got to help yourself, and the only way to help yourself is to be authentic and real with yourself and accept who you are and your
Yeah.
strong suits. Um, and accept your weaknesses, and grow those. It doesn't mean just because you have a weakness doesn't mean you give it up on that part of yourself. That could be considered a problem or an opportunity to grow. So, I mean, I think we really get judgmental on ourselves. And me coming from my own background and experience, anything that wasn't great, anything that wasn't masculine, I didn't like about myself, and I buried it, and it
Yeah.
made me very one dimensional. And my piece of art was just red and black, and it sucked. I was living it. You know, um, and
Yeah.
it made me feel empty.
Yeah. You definitely when we worked together, you definitely had a very black and white mentality. And sometimes folks do have that. But then I start to ask questions, and like it's black and white is very hard, just especially when it comes to relationships. And I think at the end of the day, the personal development comes to the relationship with yourself. You know, I think having, more empathy with yourself, of accepting that we have emotions, we interact with people, and there's ways that, we don't act 100%. You can't be 100%, right? And then learning to forgive yourself and everything is cool. One thing I wanted to talk about is that before. I'm not sure. Did you start meditating when you started working with me, or were you doing meditations before?
I started meditations about 4 years ago. Um,
Hmm.
and it was like, it's like an ebb and flow. It sort of fell off a little bit, and a couple months ago, you'd recommend it. I get back, I really commit to it, and I did. Um, my problem is I'm busy, which everybody is. That's not an excuse, but you got to make time for yourself. And I mean, meditation is great. I mean, it's really helped me get clear on. It's inside work, man. It's like you
Yeah.
spend so much time looking at things and evaluating things outside of yourself. Meditation is just looking inside. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I think one I wanted to point out is because sometimes during coaching sessions you're not 100% sure like what like catches on or resonates with who you're working with. Um I was working with Anthony and I said, "Hey, you want to do an exercise or a meditation together?" And I think maybe it was like 4 or 5 sessions in, and you had been starting to do the meditations, and which is very insightful for me, where I could start to see the progress and that we're actually moving in the right direction. And we did a meditation together, and usually I would think like he would have like it would take a little bit of time for people to kind of clear their thoughts and kind of be really present. But when we did the meditation, and literally it was like Anthony was like there present, being with me and just kind of ready to do the meditation exercise. And it's still fairly new to me to do meditations on Zoom call and like conference calls and everything. He was game. And it was cool to like practice that exercise on him and then really see that growth. And we're talking about like removing some of the identities and some of the beliefs and some of the stuff that you hate about yourself. And then we're starting to talk about like creating a newer version. The newer version of Anthony looks a little bit more uh kind, caring or kind to himself. And he's got a little bit of an artistic side to himself as well too, because he's been talking about like painting and stuff. um I want to hear about some of the other stuff that has benefited like outside your life. It seems like you're very empowered, starting to speak your mind a little bit more. Has it affected like your workplace and some of your relationship with like your kids and like maybe other areas besides just like here?
it has. And it's like, it's not directly, it's not a direct effect. I mean, it's more like, my body and my actions are like sort of the vehicle that I show up in the world in, right? So it's like with gain perspective comes new opportunity. You know, with the workplace stuff, like I've been grinding in like the commercial construction space for years, and I know you're familiar with that space. It's
Hmm.
very cutthroat. In a business development role, and I a couple years ago, I got to a place where I was like, this is not the environment I want to continue in
Hmm.
because of the person that I need. I feel I need to be successful in it. It was more of an industry thing than anything else, but
Yeah.
um, I took time to try to find a job, like the career job that I wanted to invest years of my life in. And I had to consider my own initiatives. I wanted to be part of growing something. Um, and it took time, but I was lucky enough to find an opportunity with an international manufacturing company. They were looking for they were, dominant in European markets. They wanted to bring their products to the US. I was like, I'm a business development guy. There's some correlations in my skill set. I'm not qualified for this job. I won't. I don't deserve this job.
Hmm.
I ran into that, but I'm going to apply anyway, and I'm going to try to do the work in the meantime to feel worthy of this job. And the stars aligned, right? And I got the
Yeah.
job. I've been there for about a year and a half. It's been going great. I love the company I work for. I'm contributing to something that I truly believe in with my kids. I had some examples. Some bad examples are the best examples, right?
Hmm.
It's really knowing what you don't want to be and seeing what you don't want to be is a clear indication of how you should conduct yourself, right? So as a dad, I grew up in a pretty uh, critical
Yeah.
I had a pretty critical home environment. Like, we won't
Yeah.
get into it too much, but it wasn't great. So I knew not to be judgmental of my kids. I knew to be supportive, but I wasn't necessarily emotionally available, because my kids' suffering made me feel inadequate. It stressed me out, you know? And, you know, I struggled with that helicopter parent thing, like being
Yeah.
too involved. You know, my daughter's 15 and a half now. And I remember a couple years ago, she's like 13. And I was talking to her about school and stuff. And she's like, Dad, your worry like stresses me out. And I'm like, fuck, I'm stressing
She
my
could feel
daughter out.
that. She could feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a real thing. Yeah.
So yeah. And I mean, that was a control thing. So I had to learn like, hey, I got to trust my kids to like get out there in the world and figure it out. You know, they got to figure it out too. And like, I can be there for them. Like all I need to do is be, is retain trust with them so that they know to come to me when they need me, right? And facilitate wherever I can, wherever they ask me to. But I don't need to push or facilitate in ways that they might not want to, in areas that they might not want to pursue. You
Yeah.
know, in relationships, I'm still figuring it out, man. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
that's the next part of me. Like, I'm sort of, you know, I'm sort of maybe autonomous in my own emotions and stuff. I definitely don't feeling. I've realized I have in the past felt responsible for other people's emotions. I know I don't like feeling responsible for other people's emotions. I
Yeah.
don't like getting caught in that codependent situation where,
That was something that was big for you. I think you were working on the codependence of like when you were in relationships where I think you took ownership of a lot of people's responsibility of their happiness, right? Is that's what we were working on, the codependency and stuff, and then
yeah,
starting to shed that a little bit because and then everybody has their own feelings, everybody has their day to days and stuff, and I've dealt with that a lot as well too, and a little bit part of this podcast is to difference between like therapists and life coaches. I could share some of my personal experiences as well to kind of like relate. So Anthony and I are going through very similar stuff. You know, we're both single male, got kids and everything, so we could relate and share stories as well too. But similar, you know, going through the same struggles, trying to better ourselves and also go back into the dating field and relationships and everything. And I've told Anthony, I was like, it's good to work on yourself, but the real test is to see how the work really when you're in other relationships, right? If your relationship with your kids are better, your relationship with your new spouse or your boss or anything, if your personal development is working, your relationship should get better with everybody else because you're starting to be more understanding of yourself and you're starting to understand other people as well too. So that relationship starts with yourself, right? And I was expressing when we first started, it was like like I have good quality of life, right? Because I have good relationships and I heavy focus a lot on my relationships and how we could connect and uplift people and everything. But that's just to harp on to like relationships. I was talking to him a lot about that. And family is one of the biggest things, especially in like relationship, is like letting go of their expectations. Sometimes we have expectations of our kids. We have expectations of the people that we work with and everything. Um, but those insights are good and everything. But yeah, man, tell me anything else. You're not really like a social media guy or anything, but I think you said something very powerful about folks that might be you know, on the fence about
yeah,
therapy, life coaching, and doing this type of work because this type of work is not it's not like it's not out there, right? Because who wants to be like, hey, I have a problem,
taboo. Yeah,
right? It's not. It's hard.
yeah.
So talk
I can't
about
be fun.
that. Yeah,
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 yeah, man. Yeah, no, I think about all the years I wasted. And I mean that sounds like black and white thinking. And I mean I am. That's the way I am, man. I'm sort of dark like that.
yeah.
But I think about all the life that I missed out on, um,
Years wasted. That's
stuck in my own
thank you guys for watching the Flow In, Flow Out podcast. So I want to take a moment and take a break from the show and thank you for being a part of our community. So I'm the head coach at Peak Performance Academy, and I want to talk about how you guys could support the channel and how we could support you as well too. So if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and share it with your thoughts. Leave a review with some feedback and let us know what you enjoy about the show. Your review helps the algorithm and gets our message out to more people. So here's how we could support you guys in your personal growth. So we have a coaching community called Peak Performance Academy, where I'm the head coach. We offer live coaching calls and lifestyle packages as well too. So if you need additional support in these areas of your life, please book a discovery call with us. We look forward to hearing from you and look forward to working with you. And also, if you are a fan of the Flow In, Flow Out podcast and you resonate with the message, and if you have an inspiring story to share, anything that you want to get out there that's going to help elevate the collective vibrations, we welcome you. Just let me know, send me an email, send me a comment, and then we'll get you scheduled on to the show. So we look forward to having you, and we love and appreciate all the support that have you been giving to our the Flow In, Flow Out podcast and the Peak Performance Academy community.
My stuck in my own framing, right? So maybe we can talk about like my journey for growth. And I
Yeah,
think what was most important was I had to find a foundation for growth, and that came with like acceptance, like
yeah,
like raw acceptance of who I am, like what I am. No filters, no like who I want to be, like what I want people to see me as. Fuck all that.
yeah,
Who am I, dude? How am I feeling? Like, how do I feel about myself? What are things that I like about myself? What are things that I don't like about myself? I had to show up for myself with love and acceptance, um, so that I could find opportunities. I could find problems, which led to opportunities, which leads to growth, right? So, I mean, I think a lot of us get stuck in this mindset where, you know, we're good enough. It's like perfectionism, right? Like either we're good or we're bad. Either we're perfect or we're fucked up. I can guarantee you that you're flawed. It's
yeah,
okay. We all are, you know? Anybody that tells you they're not flawed, anybody that tells you they have no issues, don't trust that person because they don't see themselves, right? I had to learn to see myself.
yeah.
Um,
Would you
and
say
that
it
was
as like
hard.
more like denial? I think there's a lot of denial going on there that
Maybe
like
that's a Western mindset thing, but yeah, I mean, I see it like,
I see it.
I never saw it. I never really saw it in the past in other people, but now I see it, and and it's heartbreaking, man. It's
It's yeah.
heartbreaking. You know,
When you say heartbreaking,
yeah,
are you more empathetic to other people that you see that are not, of course, like you can't change everybody, right? But you're starting to
yeah,
see like where like sometimes where like my message is, why am I doing podcasting and putting this message out? And like I said, I'm like, it's kind of saddens me to see that people aren't doing this personal development work and actually being their like real, true, honest, authentic self forth. Because sometimes, like when we talk about programming and patterns and stuff, we see these things. We know that we want to stop these things, and you're putting out so many like points and good stuff about like just being so blinded in one thing, or probably even in just denial, right? Denial is a big thing where I think we're suppressing it. We're not facing what's making us sad or what's making us react in these relationships and stuff. And I applaud you for like really stepping outside your comfort zone and sharing that. I think that's very a powerful and testament for you as well too. And I'm sure like that's going towards like your men's health group, and you mentor some people as well too. And I'm sure like the benefit, the work that you do on yourself it's like a fine line because you had to prioritize yourself. Like sometimes there's this word narcissism that gets thrown out on personal development, but you do very have to much be selfish and taking care of who you are, especially as an adult male. I think our message kind of resonates with similar age groups since we're the same people, you know what I'm saying? So it's like I always talk about we're talking to like a younger version of ourselves. And what I think happened with our coaching session is that you might have been spiritually like here, and then I brought you here to kind of like where we're at. And like I've seen so much growth and potential in you and as well too. And like what you're saying, it's great, man. I love that. I'm seeing that from you and everything. Is there I guess like going forward and stuff, I always talk about like, hey, what in the future, what things are you working on? I know like you always got a lot of stuff going on with like your work and everything and stuff. Is there more like you want to get into like certain hobbies? I know you fish and stuff. We could cut this into like the fun part because you and me, we always talk about some real intense stuff and then just kind of ease it with like
I
something
love, listen,
chill.
man, I love the intense stuff. Let's stay on it, man. I mean, yeah, I mean, to take a step back and to
Yeah,
like talk about what you just talked about with life coaching and stuff, you know, I mean, you and I, we've been talking, we've had a number of sessions. I mean, I think early on I saw you and I was like, this guy's being authentic, man. This guy's being authentic. He's being who he is. And I mean, that's the goal, man. You know, that's the goal. You got to show up as you.
yeah,
I think so many people struggle with being authentic. And I think that's where the suffering and pain comes from. I think that's where depression, anger. I can't be authentic. I can't be my real self. My people won't accept me. There's a
yeah,
codependent nature to that. Just like to bring back the painting, codependence, the painting, just to think about your life is your art, man. It's your canvas. Codependence is letting somebody else come up and say, I think you should do this and that with
yeah,
their own colors and their own brush or hey, it would make me feel better if you did this with your
yeah,
painting. But it's like you got to learn to set boundaries first. It's like, hey, I love you, but this is my life, you know. And you got to shed that codependence to show up as your authentic self. You have to accept yourself. You have to accept your flaws. And the one of the hardest parts of growth, once I set that foundation and really did accept myself, some people call it self-love. I still struggle with that. I like myself. I don't love myself. There are times where I get mad at myself. There are times where I love myself. I'm like, hey, that was pretty good. But, you know, but, uh, but I had to set that foundation in acceptance. And it's, if you frame it in self-love, you don't fully accept yourself until you love yourself. You're never going to get there. Right. So just accept yourself for who you are. It's all right, man. We're all fucked up.
yeah,
I
yeah,
guarantee you can find somebody, you shouldn't compare yourself to other people, but I guarantee you're not the worst person you've ever met. Um, so there's that, the acceptance, and then boundaries, man. And that's when codependence comes in. A lot of us, and I think maybe it's a Western thing, but codependence is a condition that riddles us. We're responsible for our mother's happiness. We're responsible for our kids' well-being. We're responsible for our kids' frustration. We're responsible for our boss's success. Uh, no, no, you're only responsible for you. And anybody that tells you or makes you feel responsible for them or their needs or their well-being um,
they
is
need to do work.
engaging with you in codependence. And it's important to set boundaries there. And I mean, that can be life-changing. That can really affect relationships. That can end relationships. Um, before my divorce, I used to have a really big friend group. I still have a really big friend group. I'm still friends with all the same people, but my relationship with a lot of those people has changed because I noticed codependence in a lot of
Yeah,
those relationships. And it's not because, and again, nobody's bad, and I don't know if I addressed this. Another realization I had is nobody's bad. We're all just fucked up. So with that mindset, I wasn't able to frame things in black and white. This person's bad. This person is good. It's no, this person is struggling like I'm struggling. This is a unique aspect in the way they're struggling. This is the way my struggles intermingle with their struggles and can spin out of control into codependence. So
yeah,
like I need to not contribute to that because I'm not helping them and I'm not helping me. Right.
yeah,
So boundaries are big, but I mean, there's so much more in the personal growth and it's something that I will pursue. There's no finish line. I'll pursue it forever.
yeah,
But in that self-acceptance, in setting boundaries, I've created so much space for my own growth. I've found new colors. It's not just a hammer anymore, you know? And it's and a big reason why it's not a hammer anymore is because, like, I don't have those relationships that require me to be that macho guy. And if I'm not that macho guy, I'm, a pussy fuck up loser or something like that. And I don't have those relationships that where I'm required to, or where I'm responsible for somebody else's happiness, where, if they're not happy, I'm a failure, like, or
Hmm.
I feel that, it's not necessarily these people are telling me these things. That's what I feel. So
Yeah.
boundaries are huge. But where do I want to go, man? Dude, I don't know, man, but I know I'm on the right path. I mean,
Yeah.
this journey is like, it's like, this journey is like,
What's the philosophy of the podcast? It's FIFO. You'll figure it out.
exactly, man. Well, dude, I mean, that's a huge part of, like, the authenticity, like, in accepting yourself, is like, you find out that, like, you'll figure it the fuck out. Like, life is unpredictable, and you learn to trust yourself. Like,
Yeah.
as opposed to this like meticulous planning. I got to plan for every variable. I got to mitigate for every variable. Some say a
It's like,
failure to plan is a plan to fail. That's bullshit. Because a failure to plan, the philosophy of a failure to plan as a plan to fail, requires that you have a defined understanding, a defined and accurate understanding of every potential variable out there. And
yeah,
I don't care
it's
who you
hard.
are, you don't.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's cool, man.
I think the philosophy is starting to like run to everybody that listens to the podcast and stuff. It really is like it's a process, man. It's such a process that you have to just embrace it. I've I've learned to kind of embrace it. I think I drew a reframe here. It's a diagram of a shit, and then you reframe it with a shit with a backwards hat and like a joint and a sunglasses. That's a powerful for me. It's like it's simple, but like you're just reframing everything that you're starting to think about, and then you're becoming more optimistic about the chaos that eventually happens. Life is at eventually like it's chaos a lot. It's crisis.
Chaos, man. It's suffering. Life
Crisis.
is life. Life is suffering, man. It really
That's the
is.
Buddhist influence on you, but it's like it's chaos. It's constantly trying to figure things out, but also trying to learn and shed things at the same time. Is that's that very it's very philosophical of doing both, where you're learning and then also shedding some of like the older identity and building yourself up. But I think that's like that's the work that we wanted to talk about. Is like the identity shifting of taking some of the old thoughts and patterns and behaviors and stuff, because people in relationships, we have same patterns that we do all the time. When something happens, like if somebody does something in a relationship, we tend to do something like that. If we get triggered in something emotionally, we tend to have like a same pattern of probably drinking too much of something like that. And having a
Yeah.
coach, it's just basically saying, hey, look, that pattern that you're doing, you might not see it, but I could see it, because it's very easy for somebody to spot, outside of it. Because I practice it on myself and I practice it on different clients and stuff. So I could like say, hey, that pattern that you're doing with the codependency, let's talk about it. Why are we doing it and stuff? And strategically asking those questions and stuff. I think that's the type of work that we were doing, kind of like this identity shifting into like a new person and stuff. And Anthony's eventually he's gonna figure it out. His the mindset, to me, I believe, is more important than like, hey, if I read like 4 or 5 books per month, like I'm a good person, or if I journal and meditate every day and stuff. But if it makes you overall a good person and your relationships get better and you start to love yourself and be more kind and stuff, personal development works. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, I don't think you could put like a price, a tag on it and stuff. And for you to say, hey, like you had wished you had done it like I think 5 years or something. Even when I went to therapy, I said, man, I should have done this about 3 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like if I had started done more proactive approach, I would have been a lot probably in a better mental state. So it's like some of the stuff that we gotta really look at is like it's not just denying that it's hard, learning how to manage these emotions as we get older and stuff, because life is a shitstorm, unexpected when you have kids, when you have family, and when you're dealing with like your own company and stuff, shitstorm after shitstorm. But how do we navigate that? But I think like what you said is like spot on. You're learning to kind of embrace the chaos, the flow of things and stuff, and the idea is starting to kind of like you know it becomes your own personal philosophy and stuff as well
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. um I just had a podcast before this, so I'm kind of like talked out. But if you want to
I hear
share,
you.
I think you got a ton of stuff, but I'll give you the floor and like share anything, and then I'll give you final thoughts before we head off onto the next podcast. Okay.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely, dude. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, ultimately, I think, with where I am now, I mean, I think it's, I think growth is a journey. And, like at first you feel a little selfish. You got a lot of people, friends, family,
Yeah,
uh,
that's a big one. I did want to.
therapists. Yeah, get on it.
It's like your friend group you talked about, like growth and changing and everything. That's big, and you kind of touched on it about like growth and how there's accepting that your friends. I've struggled with this too when I started like pushing outside more and do more personal development, more spiritual. I was very judgmental towards those folks that weren't doing the same work,
Yep.
but just learning to accept that people are who they are at that time, that moment. They also have the opportunity to grow and change, and then you become more accepting of them as well too. And that's part of like personal development work, is learning to accept people. I think that's one point I do want to say about like friends and stuff, because I had that mindset. I was like, fuck them, they're not doing personal development work, and then like feeling like I had superiority and stuff. But
Yeah, that's huge, man. That's huge. I mean, judgment's a big thing, and I mean, every bit of judgment you project, you can guarantee, even if you don't feel it, you don't think you're doing it on the inside too. But I mean, judgment's big. I mean, uh, you know, who am I to tell anybody what they should be doing? I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, man. Do you know what you're doing? We're on we really don't know what we're doing.
I
I
know, but
know.
people listen to me on my podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, no, and I mean that's what I'm saying though. Like, we're figuring it out.
No, I think
Like,
I
there's
think
no,
I think people listen to you more when you're honest about your, I guess you're or vulnerable, right? I think vulnerability. Maybe I think we could talk about is like you've been extremely vulnerable, like not vulnerable, but just talking about like your
Yeah.
experience.
I mean, that's new for
Vulnerable
me, dude. Yeah.
vulnerability is something that men don't think is like real, where you talk about your emotions, your struggles, and like things. For me, this is what like I live for. Like I'm not about, I mean, yeah, I could have some conversations about a few things, but I like to get deep and like talk about people's like understanding and their psychology and stuff. So like having those type of conversation, I think is more meaningful and it makes more impact on people's lives too. So that's why I think I love podcasting. It really like fires me up and gets to share this message to other people and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, vulnerability is big, judgment's big. I mean, vulnerability used to be a terrifying for me. I mean, I could get physically vulnerable. I could get like uncomfortable. I think I told you early on, like, I think I used to pride myself in like being able to suffer, but I wasn't suffering on my own terms, right? I mean, life, that Eastern philosophy, life is suffering. I mean, it is. You're going to suffer in life, but you have an opportunity to choose your suffering. And I mean, sometimes you can grow through that suffering. Sometimes that suffering, some people have horrible events happen to them. It's a suffer. It's an experience that they have to suffer through, and it changes them forever, whether it be good or bad. I mean, another big event I had. I mean, I had a near death event, like when my daughter was like 2 years old. You guys can see I have one eye.
Yeah, talk
But
about that. I want to hear, because I didn't think it didn't seem too traumatic to your life, right? Or you could speak about it.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't like in the frame of my life, it wasn't that traumatic. It was like I didn't die, but I mean, long story short, I used to like I've had a number of like side hustles, and right out of college I worked in a warehouse and I would like buy and sell. I would buy, refurbish, and sell old Honda motorcycles. So weird. I like, but I don't know if you're
That was your
familiar with
thing.
cafe racers, like old like 70s model Hondas that I would buy, chop up, make them like cafe racers, which are like the Euro style older street bikes, which and then sell them. And I was working on one. I was using a something called a pneumatic die cutter, which is a air powered cutting tool. It's for cutting steel. It spins really fast. It's got an internal mechanism. Since it's pneumatic means air, so it's high pressure air going through it, and it's basically got a fan that makes the blade spin. And there's something called a centrifugal brake that slows that blade down or prevents it from over spooling or spinning so fast that the blade blows up. And that internal mechanism had failed. I'd used this thing hundreds of times before. You're supposed to spool it up to operating RPMs before you touch metal. And I was spooling it up, and I was like, it sounds a little higher pitch. Sounds like it's going a little faster than normal. And like literally right when I thought that, I heard a loud pop. Felt like something hit me in the face, and I have like half of a blade. Just I don't know if you can see the scar, but it just hit my face, took my eye out, crushed my nose and my sinus cavity. Went to the hospital. I remember sitting. My daughter was 2. My girlfriend and then wife, now ex-wife, who I have a great relationship with, better relationship than I've ever had with. Our jobs spent together. But
that's
at
important.
the time,
I'm gonna talk about that too. Yeah, that's
super important. Super important, man. I mean, your job as a parent is the biggest job you'll ever have. That's how we change the world. We change the world through our kids. But she didn't like blood, and I was like, I can't let her see me because if she passes out, I'm gonna fucking die. I mean, I remember standing up, like putting my hands up. I saw bits of blue, which is like my iris, in my hand, and my heartbeat squirt. It was bad.
I'm kind of like cringing now as I hear it, but
sorry for the detail. But I was like, I can't let her see me, but I needed her to call the ambulance. So I was like, hey, Courtney, please call the ambulance. Like I'm really hurt. And I remember she called the ambulance. She yelled, she coming outside. I'm like, hey, don't come outside. Just call the ambulance real quick. And I remember standing there. I felt like a deflating balloon in a freezer. I don't know why. It's weird, but I just felt like I was like, and I was losing blood. I was literally like on the verge of passing out. I think I almost died. I don't know. The ambulance got there really quick. They were like pulling the stretcher out. I was like, dude, get me in the ambulance. Like if I have to wait for you to get the stretcher out, like I might pass out, or I don't know. I might die. I don't know. Just I'm walking and they're like, here, get in here. They got me to the hospital. It was good. I woke up, they gave me some medication. They stopped the bleeding. I woke up in the hospital before they did a procedure. I had this amazing doctor named, you can blank out the name if you want to. He was an amazing guy. Named her Dr. Abdel Albash. Mm-hmm. He put 160 sutures in my eyeball, filled it with saline solution. I woke up the next day. I had a big scar, obviously, but I was good to go. I was back at work like a week later.
Really?
Fast forward a year and a half. I had my family and everything like, hey, your eye, you got like sort of an eye with like a scar. At the time I had my real eye with a scar through it. I had some pressure, like it didn't look great. Maybe you could get some cosmetic surgery, get it fixed. I went to the Wilmer Eye Institute, which is known for being one of the best ocular surgery institutes in the world, and at Johns Hopkins. They proposed this new surgery called evisceration, where they like opened up my eye, scooped the insides out, put an implant in. They're like, it's going to be great. Your ocular nerve's going to be intact. Down the road, we developed some crazy cyborg shit, and we can like put a camera in your eye and wire it to your brain. Like you're going to be good to go. Yeah. Sounded great. I got that procedure done, woke up in excruciating pain, and spent 18 days at home in excruciating pain. Just got more pain medication, After 18 days, my mom and my girlfriend at the time had come in to check on me, and they're like, my eye was like out of my head. I had internal bleeding.
Oh man.
Behind my eye, it pushed my eye out of my head. That initiated 12 follow-up procedures. It was a nightmare, but it was very depressing. It was something that I think I sort of shut out. I hated going to the hospital. There were points where I was like, I'm okay dying. Like I'm done with this shit, And I know it sounds dramatic because it's my eye, but it's like there was a period of like, probably 2.5 months where like it felt like somebody had their finger on my eye and was putting constant pressure in, on my eye, like had their fingers in my brain, basically. I was like, I can't live like this. This is done.
That's tough. I mean, you definitely, it sounds definitely traumatic. I mean, but I don't think we did that much work into that area and everything, but I mean,
that hasn't been I think maybe there's some things I can work on. Maybe I'll find out, but that hasn't been my struggle, man. My struggle has been the emotional stuff.
But has it been more empowering that you kind of like, I mean, depression now for me, it's like I wear it kind of almost like a badge of honor, where like, yeah, I've gone through it. I could talk about it from like experience and stuff, and kind of wear it as like a badge of honor and stuff. But it was like the
Yeah, dude. I
story,
mean,
like
I know. Yeah, yeah,
people go through like traumatic like accidents, and that changes kind of a lot like their perspective, like near death experience, like committing like thoughts of like suicide and stuff.
yeah,
That is like, for me, I've been there. It sucks.
yeah.
Anybody that has that might be going through or have those thoughts and stuff, that is near death experience, that can change the course of your life and stuff. So those things where like that could be part of your healing journey, part of your story, where like that was part of something, it wasn't just nothing.
No, I think so. I mean, I think it definitely set the frame for the next. I think I had to have that experience to have the awareness when I had my hardest experience, which was like divorce, which was a personal failure. Like that was worse than death for me at the time.
Yeah.
That failing somebody, failing my relationship, um, failing my kids, failing my parents, failing my that
Yeah.
was worse for me than death, man. So I think having that experience prior, that I think the prospect of death, or the experience of near death, whether it be self-inflicted or not. I mean, I think it shakes your worldview so much. It forces you to look at things that you might not ever consider. It forces you to look at the finite aspects of life. How lucky are we to be here?
Hmm.
Like, who knows what happens after? It doesn't matter. Like, we've got today, we've got the next 5 minutes, we've got the next day, we've got the next hour, we've got the next year if we're lucky. Maybe we don't.
Yeah, man.
But
There's strength down
why
there. There's strength down
exactly?
there.
Like, if
Yeah.
if if I can't control anything outside of myself, how about I try to look inside and find a way to enjoy this next 5 minutes, this next hour, month, year, or whatever I have left, and like do whatever I can to try to enjoy this, because I
Yeah.
don't know what comes after this. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's something that's a stoic. I mean, we touched into like this shows a lot about like philosophy, but you expressed a lot of like pain about like Buddhism philosophy, and then trying to understand death. It's a hard thing to kind of face the reality. Men at our age, this is kind of like our existential crisis, where you're like, where and what do we do, like when we do go away, like what type of legacy, what type of things that we made a difference and stuff. And Anthony has really empowered me as well too. And you can see from him, he's very empowered to share his story and talk about it and stuff. I'm sure he's gonna go and do great stuff, because I think his mindset has shifted so much. Mine has shifted and transformed as well too, because I got a lot of feedback coming back from him, because I asked for honest feedback as well too, as a coach, from coaching him and from what he sees and the message that I put out there. I think the authenticity that you put out, it's gonna naturally spread to people, because in a world where like there's a lot of like confusion and stuff, where trying to talk about personal development and being real and honest with yourself, it will start to gravitate, like start people will start to listen to this message. And I think us men, um as we start to meditate on our death, and try to leave a better legacy and do something that's important, giving back to everything, I think sharing this message of personal development, learning and understanding our own suffering, and understanding it is important to transform this into something productive. I think the message is like, yes, we could do personal development work, but it has to be transformed into something that is productive in a way. I think teaching and contribution is, for me, I believe it's the most important thing, and giving back to the community. Flow in, flow out is part of like my mission to share the message and help bring each other up a little bit. And your message, Anthony, inspires me, and because you at the end of the day, you believe in me as well too. He
I
says a
do,
lot of,
man.
he says I'm the one. I'm like, it's a
Well,
lot.
yeah, I think you're open to the broad dynamics in life. I think you're open. I think you accept people for who they are. I think that you recognize that you don't have all the solutions, but you're willing to get down there at somebody's level and try to help them find theirs, right? Um, it's I've never heard you say, Anthony, you have to. It's the I can if I want to mentality. You know, and there's no guidebook, man. It doesn't exist. There millions of people have tried to write a guide for the universe. Millions of people have tried to define reality, define
Yeah,
success, define, and nobody can do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. And I think you recognize that. I think you recognize that the roadmap exists within the person you're working with, and
yeah,
uh, and I think that you recognize that only they can find it, but you can be a resource in helping them find it. And I think that's beautiful. And I hope that people can open up to the idea that they're not fucked up.
I like that.
They might be flawed, they're not bad, and they can change. And it's not going to be super comfortable, but like it's awesome. It's
Yeah,
awesome. Like, yeah, you can do it if you want to. You can do it. You don't have to do it, but if you want to do it, you can do it. And there's
yeah,
nobody out there. Nobody can do it for you. Nobody's out there.
I
We're
like
all
it.
flawed.
I love
Yeah.
it, love it. I chose the title of a philosopher, like a spiritual title, because of a philosopher really is like, at the end of the day, is like, it's just a signpost. You know what I'm saying? That's where I started switching my coaching to more of just like, hey, I'm just kind of like a guide, right? If there's something that I think you might be seeing that you might not be seeing, I'm gonna try to bring it to your forefront to see if you want to do it and stuff, and then you could choose to go down that path or whatever. But before, I used to coach, and I would coach, and I would get really upset that people wouldn't take this good advice. It would
Mm-hmm.
frustrate me. It would frustrate me. And then when I started to switch over, like, coaching is not me. It is not me. That was my ego onto other people of like, you should be lifting weights. You should be eating this. You should be that. And then
Well,
I was like,
dude,
you know,
coming from somebody who like struggle with criticism, it's not that they don't accept your advice or they don't think your advice is right. It's that they're taking your advice and they're framing it in their worldview,
Mhm.
and it feels like criticism. And they're like, I can't,
Yeah,
I can't accept that I'm. It's they're interpreting that advice as criticism or as a judgment.
yeah,
And that will get people to shut down. And I mean, that's what it is. And I mean, if you can, and I know you've done an amazing job with, I've watched some of your podcasts, and and you've done a good job with me. Like really, I was coming to you for like validation. I was like, I saw you, and
yeah,
I shouldn't look for external validation, but I was like, this guy's authentic. He's going to give it to me. We don't see eye to eye on everything, but he's going to give it to me straight. And like, I was coming from like this 4 years work in therapy, which I had amazing growth in. And I'm like, I'm sitting here like, dude, okay, I feel better. I'm happier. Um, but like my old mindset comes in, but am I a pussy? Am I a fucking pussy? You
yeah.
know, for being here. And I know that sounds really messed up. I know I'm not. I know I'm not. But am I perceived as such? And it doesn't matter it doesn't fucking matter, man. Like that. That's it. Like,
This is the authentic
like,
Anthony right here. We're bringing out the
yeah,
authentic Anthony. I love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Anthony accepts that he's intense. He loves it. I was like, we're gonna bring some intensity to this stuff. I was like, yeah, yeah, man.
Oh yeah, dude.
And I've gained a brother. He's gained a mentor, and like, we're friends. You know what I'm saying? It's not like we're just. I always tell people, like, when we're done, like, as like a coach, I want to be able to give the tools so you could be successful, and then send me some referrals, or be raving fan of the message and everything, and the individualization, the personal development, the personal growth is really the end of the message and stuff. Because at the end of the day, before a business comes, you have to talk to the person, right? You're Anthony before your title at work. I'm Samnang before I'm a lifestyle coach or a podcast host. Where the authenticity should authenticness, the openness shall I believe will help spread the message of just like helping each other more. And I think that's what the message, and being real with yourself, and uh that's that's it, man. I did 2 back-to-back podcasts and I'm kind of
I
talked
dig
out. I
it.
need a break.
Yeah,
But
I hear you, man.
Anthony did a great job of just filling in the episode and just bringing the it's I could see it as passion. I really do see it as passion, and that your excitement to kind of do this type of work and continue to grow, like continue to grow, sharpen your saw, and develop yourself. And then when we come back and catch up and stuff, like I want to create lifelong friends, community members, and stuff because like like I have some really good relationships that have lasted like childhood to where I am today, and I want to
Yep.
teach people how like not to be so judgmental because we're all at one time was probably felt like a shitty person, and we probably did some work, and we probably have things that we want to reconcile and stuff like that. So just be open and accepting of that. I think that's a great message that you shared today, and being open and honest and vulnerable and authenticity is just so powerful. But that's it
I
for the
love it.
show. You want to say anything else before we hop off?
Yeah, two things. So I like fishing. I know you're not a
Yes.
big angler, but two things. I'd like to come out there and get in the gym with you.
Okay.
At least
Yeah.
once, twice, maybe a couple times. And then I'd also like, maybe if it works, I'd like you to come out, get on the boat with me. Maybe I can change your mind. Fishing is a good. It's a good meditative practice. Even if not, we can just get on the boat in a beautiful spot, talk about life for a little bit.
Absolutely. I'm so my dad lives close to Lake Braddock. That's where he still lives in the same house. So almost like every other weekend, I'm almost every other weekend, but I'm at least there like once a week or once a month and stuff to go visit and just hang out with some of my friends in that area and stuff. We'll most
Make
definitely
it happen.
hang out and stuff. But like working out and stuff.
I'll
Um
come out to you.
Yeah, there's a great gym here. I'm actually gonna have the owner of Vintage Iron on the podcast because he's built that this super sweet gym that's very like aesthetic and nice design and stuff too. But yeah, awesome,
I
awesome,
love
brother.
it. And one last thing.
Yeah,
What's the next version of that pile of shit you have on your
this one
dry
here,
erase board there? Yeah.
a
I'm
beat
thinking like maybe no, look,
or
that pile of shit now it has a tie and stuff. Well, what's the next version? I'm thinking like maybe it degrades in the ground and you have like a beautiful tree or a flower growing out of that thing.
yeah, that might be nice because it's
Maybe.
it's like compost. It turns into a beautiful tree. It's like a nice metaphor.
There you go, man.